The staggeringly streaky Minnesota Twins stayed true to form last week, extending their losing streak to 7 games before once again turning on a dime to win their next 4 in a row. The Twins have not been able to gain any ground in an American League Central Division led by 2 scorching hot teams, but for now the Twins stopped the bleeding and held mostly steady, and that is just what they needed to do. Hello and welcome to the Twins Daily Week in Review podcast. My name is Nick Nelson. I am a co-founder of Twins Daily and author of our weekly recaps on the site, which come to you every Sunday evening as a review of the past 7 days of action. You can find that article on twinsdaily.com, or you can always tune in on your favorite podcasting platform to the show. We thank you for joining us here as we take a look back at the week spanning Monday, May 20th, through Sunday, May 26th. The Minnesota Twins going 4-2 over the past week, leaving their record at 28-24, 4 games above 500. They ended up outscoring their opponents by 1 run in that span. The overall run differential for the season +4. And the Twins, as I mentioned, though, still third place in the American League Central. They actually lost ground despite winning both of their series over the past week, winning 4 of 6 games. Because the Cleveland Guardians, who are leading the division, they've won 8 straight. They might be on the way to their 9th straight. As I'm recording this, they are leading in the 9th inning. So if they're able to finish the job against the Angels, the Twins will be 7.5 back after 2 weeks ago being just a half game behind the Guardians at the top of the division. Twins also trailing a Kansas City Royals team that was on an 8-game winning streak before losing on Sunday. And those two teams will have a showdown upcoming, as we will discuss. But first, let's take a look back at all that happened over the past week for the Twins. Take a look at the game results, some news and notes, some big injury updates. We'll take a look at the highlights, lowlights, trending storyline, and then we'll give you a look ahead at what's on tap for the coming week. So a quick rundown of the past week's game results. Opened up on Monday with that 12-3 blowout loss to the Washington Nationals, dropping the Twins their 7th straight loss, as I mentioned. Pablo Lopez and the bullpen really rough in that game. Offense not finding much success. Twins were able to snap the winning streak on Tuesday at our Twins Daily Watch Party. Shout out Brixworth and everyone who came out. A 10-0 blowout victory. Joe Ryan was excellent. Byron Buxton hit 2 homers. The following day, the Twins able to secure a series victory with Yohan Duran squeezing by with a save in the 9th as the Twins won 3-2 over the Nationals. Then came home over the weekend to face the Texas Rangers. Another 3-2 victory on Friday night. Alex Kirilloff hitting a go-ahead homer. Yohan Duran once again picking up the save there. On Saturday, the Twins won 5-3 over the Rangers, got another big go-ahead home run from Alex Kirilloff, and then on Sunday, dropped the series finale 6-2, another tough outing from Pablo Lopez, another quiet game from the offense. So let's turn our attention to some of the news and notes from the past week as we get started. The biggest news development of the week, month, year? Was Royce Lewis getting the thumbs up to kick off his rehab stint in the minors, was able to check some of those last boxes ahead of that by running the bases on the field. All seemed to be going well. So he joined the St. Paul Saints on the road in Buffalo over the weekend, started at designated hitter and batted second on both Saturday and Sunday, finishing 3 for 9 between those 2 games with a couple singles and a double. As if to make a statement about the state of his leg, which has been healing, that quadriceps injury. Lewis immediately stole second base after singling in his first at-bat of the rehab. Don't think the Twins cared for that decision very much. I saw Lavelle E. Neal III of the Star Tribune tweeted that they were, quote, horrified by his decision to do that. And I know Rocco Baldelli mentioned he was going to call Royce and say, don't do that. Don't steal bases on your rehab stint. So the Twins understandably want to be cautious here. And I think that's why it's safe to say this will probably run longer than the typical rehab assignment you might see. Royce has been out for 2 full months. And, this is the kind of thing you don't want to mess around with. You need to minimize any risk of a setback or aggravation. So I think not only did the Twins not want Royce stealing bases. They probably don't even really want him running 100% right now if he can avoid it. Still has yet to play the field. As far as a return timeline, I think he could possibly return for the upcoming weekend series in Houston. That is the very site he debuted last year for the Twins, but also possible and probably more likely that he stays with the Saints through the week, maybe joins the Twins later on that road trip, which will take them through New York and Pittsburgh. So we'll keep an eye, but so far everything seems to be going well. So I think either way, Lewis is on track to make it back quicker than most of us expected from a scary injury, the kind of injury that can sometimes require up to half a season to heal, a very severe strain. But Royce has once again shown his ability to bounce back from these major physical hurdles and setbacks, and that continues to be as impressive to me as what he's been able to do on the field in his brief time, all too brief so far. So fingers crossed that things keep progressing smoothly for Royce Lewis as he ramps up, probably starts playing some defense here in the coming week. Some additional positive injury news from the farm. The Twins' top two prospects simultaneously fired up their own rehab stints in the minors this past week, with number one prospect Walker Jenkins and number two prospect Brooks Lee both getting started at the rookie-level Florida Complex League in Fort Myers last week. Great to see Jenkins, who's been out since opening day with a hamstring injury, resume his journey to conquer the low minors, of course. Once he's up to speed, I assume he'll be reporting to Single A. But Brooks Lee's return to action has greater implications for the Twins right now and their lagging offense. He was really impressive in spring training. He's a guy who's been identified as someone who could help the team very soon. So I think Brooks Lee could be an option to join the team within a month or so if he looks good in AAA upon being activated. A nice switch hitting bat would be good to add to this mix, a contact hitter, and just an exciting infusion maybe to a lineup that just still can't seem to quite get going. On the bullpen front, a couple moves worth mentioning. Jorge Alcala was recalled in place of Caleb Busley, and Jay Jackson accepted his assignment to AAA following last week's DFA, made it through waivers unclaimed as expected. So as we talked about last week, it's the only way you can really see him finding his way back to the majors if he's able to just find some of the velocity he lost, and that's going to be the objective for Jackson back in AAA, is trying to upgrade that arsenal here in his late 30s and get some more life out of his pitches. Cody Funderburk, the left-handed reliever, also optioned to AAA following Sunday's game, with the Twins expected to call up a fresh arm on Monday. Let's turn our attention to the highlights of a 4-2 week for the Minnesota Twins that saw them get back on track following that disastrous 0-6 mess from the previous week. Several strong performances contributing to this winning week for the Twins, but none more refreshing to see than that of Alex Kirilloff, who delivered a pair of crucial home runs over the weekend against the defending champion Texas Rangers. Kirilloff has been mired in a deep funk. Saw his batting average sink below 200 last week before he picked up 4 hits in his past 10 at-bats, including those go-ahead home runs that proved decisive on Friday and Saturday against Texas. Kirilloff's teammates remarked that the showing of emotion that we saw from him after the latter home run, that big game-breaking 3-run blast late in Saturday's game, was a rarity and a treat to see, and an energizing scene. And yeah, I think, those of us who've watched Kirilloff's play, he's always so even-keeled, so to see him so fired up was awesome. Kirilloff's prolonged mega slump that he's been in has played a substantial role in the offense's overall inability to get and stay in a rhythm. In 35 games from April 8th to May 21st, Kirilloff batted .147 with a .219 on-base percentage and .284 slugging. At his best, Alex Kirilloff is one of the team's best bats, and at a minimum, they need him to produce respectably, at least, while playing in these offensive-driven positions that he plays: first base, DH, left field. So that's why this is so good to see. It's too soon to say that Kirilloff's struggles are fully behind him, obviously, just because of a couple of games. But given how little of this we've seen in the previous 6 weeks, that power flurry that we saw against the Rangers was extremely encouraging, especially that home run, the one I mentioned, that 3-run homer. He really went down and got a breaking ball and just gulfed it over the fence. That's the kind of power that we know Kirilloff can bring to the table when he's right. So great to see. Also supplying power for the offense over the past week, Buxton, I mentioned he had a 2-home run game in that blowout win over Washington on Tuesday. Carlos Correa hit 2 homers, 2 doubles, and a triple on the week. He looks fantastic. And Max Kepler continues to get it done. Homered, doubled twice, and drew 3 walks in his 5 games. The offense as a whole remains pretty uneven, and I would not say was overly impressive over the course of the week. But with these guys swinging the bat well, with Royce Lewis on his way back, and with Brooks Lee building up in the minors, it's easier to feel some confidence in the outlook for that unit, maybe finally starting to get on more of a permanent, sustained run. The pitching staff rebounded from a rough start to the week, posting a 2.72 collective ERA in 5 games after coughing up 12 runs behind Pablo Lopez on Monday. Joe Ryan, who has emerged as the clear-cut leader of the staff and rotation, fittingly played the role of stopper on Tuesday with a masterful outing, held the National scoreless over 7 innings to lower his ERA to 3.15 on the season, 5th best walk rate in baseball. Joe Ryan could easily make a bid for an all-star nod if he continues to deliver with this level of consistency and quality. It was a much-needed week of redemption for Yohan Duran on the bullpen front. He was coming off a Pagan-esque nightmare series in Cleveland and has been raising some eyebrows with a bit of a dip in velocity of late. Duran's save attempt in Washington on Wednesday was giving off "here we go again" vibes after he surrendered a leadoff home run and then a single to the first 2 batters he faced when he came in to protect a 2-run lead. But the right-hander managed to strand the tying run on base and secure a win before closing out back-to-back wins against Texas at Target Field, getting him back on track. You can certainly argue that Duran still doesn't look quite up to his usual standard. He's got a 5-4 strikeout to walk ratio over his past 8 appearances. That's something that sticks out to me, in addition to the velocity, possibly related to the velocity. But he's still mostly getting the job done with a couple blips along the way, and he insists that his velocity issues are really more mechanical than anything, which is hopefully true. It's a long season. We still got over 2/3 of the season left. He's got plenty of time to get right, so as long as nothing is physically amiss, feeling good. But in the meantime, Duran will welcome all the help he can get in the bullpen, which has settled into a nice groove after parting ways with Jay Jackson. On Friday night, Duran teamed up with Griffin Jacks, Caleb Thielbar, and Stephen Okert to fire 4 hitless innings, protecting a 1-run lead following 5 solid frames from Bailey Ober, one of the best bullpen performances we've seen all year from the Twins. And then a similar script played out on Saturday. Chris Paddock going 5 innings, giving way to Cody Funderburk, who gave up a run, but then Cole Sands threw 2 perfect innings, bridging the way to Duran, who got another save. That is a formula, the 5 solid innings from the starter and then situational bullpen matchups all the way through the latter half of the game that Rocco Baldelli loves to successfully deploy, and he was able to do it this week. Turning to some of the low points and less positive aspects of the past week, we talked about Kirilloff and his slumping bat being a major factor in the shortcomings of this offense, which has scored 5 or more runs just twice in their past 12 games, really going back into slump mode. But more broadly, beyond Kirilloff, it is just a lack of all-around effectiveness from their collection of key left-handed bats, sans Kepler, that is stifling this team's run-scoring ability. Much of the offseason discourse centered on the need to add a right-handed bat to help balance the lineup against southpaws, Manuel Margot ending up being the guy who was brought in essentially to fill that role. But as it turns out, the Twins have proven far better against left-handed pitching with an OPS 80 points higher than against righties. Right-handed pitchers have routinely kept this lineup in check, and that is obviously problematic given the prominence of right-handed pitchers in the overall pool of pitchers. You're facing a lot of right-handers, so when you're not hitting well against righties, as the Twins pretty much have all year, that's going to have a major impact on your ability to consistently produce offense. Like Kirilloff, Trevor Larnach cooled off dramatically following a strong start for the Twins, hitting just 192 with 1 extra base hit in the month of May, 52 at-bats, including 2 for his last 25, and he has not driven in a run for more than 2 weeks. Pitchers have found pretty reliable ways to attack Larnach, I think, often with breaking balls that run down and in on him, and he has not been able to make an adjustment to this point. Nonetheless, Larnach was elevated into the leadoff spot on Sunday, due to being deemed a superior option to Edouard Julien, who was finally downgraded from his usual perch atop the lineup as his sophomore slump persists and worsens. A 1 for 13 week with 1 walk and 5 strikeouts dropped Julien's OPS to 674, which is rough when you consider that his OPS sat at 830 entering the month of May. It's been a truly rotten month for Julien, and what I find most troubling is his deteriorating approach at the plate. In the past, Julien has been susceptible to slumps like most hitters, especially strikeout-prone hitters, but he's always been able to offset them with his world-class discipline, drawing enough walks to remain an on-base threat and keep the line moving, even when the hits aren't coming for him. That has gone amiss. Julien has drawn just 1 walk in his past 12 games, and his on-base percentage is dangerously close to falling below 300 on the season. I believe it's at like 305 after Sunday's game. Dropping Julien from 1st to 8th in the batting order on Sunday against a right-handed pitcher was noteworthy. I think the first step toward trying to address this increasingly worrisome offensive spiral, and it's possible that the next step might be approaching soon. Which brings us to our trending storyline for the week. As Royce Lewis works his way back towards the big league roster, someone's current spot on that roster is at risk. It would seem unlike the Twins to cut bait on someone like Kyle Farmer at this point, as much as doing so might seem to make sense as sort of a 1-for-1 swap for Royce Lewis. You know how they like to preserve that veteran depth. Farmer's been a little better of late, still not very good on the season, but I don't think I see them taking that step yet. The most straightforward swap would be sending down Jose Miranda, who's been filling in as the Twins' regular third baseman in Lewis's absence. But given how much the Twins are struggling to string runs together, you wonder if they'd want to subtract one of their best bats. Miranda was 5 for 17 the past week with a home run and ranks 4th on the team in OPS behind Kepler, Jeffers, and Correa. In light of what we just covered regarding Julien's downfall, the preferable path might be sending Julien down to AAA alongside Matt Wallner for a sophomore reset of his own, thus keeping Miranda's bat available to the MLB club. But that's not as easy to accommodate from a logistical standpoint. Practically speaking, who steps in as the regular second baseman in this scenario? Are we expecting Royce Lewis to do that? I guess you would kind of need him to. Certainly it's not going to be Farmer, and I don't think it's going to be Castro. Moreover, we just talked about how much worse the Twins have been against righties than lefties this year. Is subbing in a right-handed bat for a left-handed one, even someone who's been scuffling like Julien, really going to be a helpful solution when you think about that? I know that Miranda's been hot lately, relatively speaking. I know that Julien's been ice cold, but when you're projecting going forward, can you realistically say that you expect Jose Miranda to be a better hitter against right-handed pitching than Edouard Julien? Because that's essentially the decision you're making. I'm not claiming to have the answer either way here, but I do think we're at a point where any extreme upcoming week from either of those players, good or bad, could significantly influence the decision. I mean, if Julien has another 1 for 15 week with a bunch of strikeouts and no walks, if Jose Miranda hits a couple more home runs, that might make the decision for them, and the Twins can just kind of try to figure it out. But it'll be interesting to see how those two both perform in the next couple of series, and also where Lewis is making starts defensively in AAA. If he were to make a start at second base in the coming week, I think that would be somewhat telling. All right, wrapping up as we always do by looking ahead to the coming week, the Twins are getting ready for a huge series to close out the homestand as they welcome the Kansas City Royals to town for a 4-game set. I mentioned that the Royals have been playing excellent ball lately, won 8 in a row before dropping their game on Sunday. They're 5 games ahead of the Twins in the division. I think when you look at how poorly the Twins have played against Cleveland so far, going 0-5 against the Guardians, there is a little heightened pressure here to show up and take this series or at least earn a split in the 4 games with Kansas City. Yes, the season is still relatively young, but you don't want to be creating that much distance between yourself and multiple teams ahead of you in the standings. That is just tough to come back from. So we'll see how the Twins are able to perform against Bobby Witt and the Royals. From there, the Twins will head to Houston to open a 9-game road trip against the Astros team that eliminated them from the playoffs a year ago. This year's iteration of Houston is a far cry from some of their past powerhouses, but they've been playing better ball lately, and I think we all know that this is not an opponent to be dismissed. Altuve and Kyle Tucker both having excellent years, so they'll make life difficult for Twins pitching. Speaking of pitching, let's take a quick look at the matchups for the coming week. As I mentioned, Royals and Twins playing a 4-game series Monday through Thursday at Target Field. It'll be Joe Ryan, Simeon Woods-Richardson, Bailey Ober, and Chris Paddock going for the Twins. And it'll be Alec Marsh, Cole Ragans, Seth Lugo, and Brady Singer going for the Royals in that series. The weekend series in Houston, we'll see Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, and Simeon Woods-Richardson taking the hill for Minnesota. And for the Astros, it'll be righty Spencer Arrighetti, Ronel Blanco, and then the left-hander Framber Valdez on Sunday to close out that series. So a 4-2 week, a normalized week to some extent. We talked about the ongoing streaks, but overall, winning 2 series, winning 4 of 6, a couple tough games, but some really impressive showings from the starters, the bullpen, and a few of these hitters, and plenty more big games coming up for the Minnesota Twins. So thanks for joining us for this recap. As always, we welcome you to come by twinsdaily.com, share your thoughts in the comments, and discuss the season as it plays out with your fellow fans. And again, my name is Nick Nelson, and this has been the Twins Daily Week in Review. We'll see you next week.